I will offer 2 tickets to a game at Oracle to anybody who shows up in a 10-3 shirt tonight. That will be awesome. I'm not giving them a plane ticket or a place to stay, but I will give them a couple of tickets to a game. It's got to be silkscreen. It's got to be professionally done.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. We're back with another weekend edition of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, looking at Saturday's games and previewing the 6-game slate for Sunday. So, no delays.
Let's get to it.
Easy. Let's start with a segment which you all know and love, and that is the monstrous line of the night. And by now, this bloke is he's capturing it a fair bit, and his name is Anthony Davis. Just another second half of a back-to-back for Davis. So, he takes it easy. He only goes for 38 and 16. He hits 2 threes. He has 2 assists. He has 3 blocks. He's 15 of 27 from the line. That'd be a lot from the line. He's 15 of 27 from the field. He's 6 of 8 from the line, and he is currently your number 1 player in 8-cat total rankings for the season. He is averaging 32 points a game, 11.5 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 51 and 81. Now, at the start of the season, I said it plenty of times. I said, I've got a gut feeling we're going to get a massive Anthony Davis season. And a few people took me to task on it, just saying, what are you basing it on? I said, I don't know. I just have a real gut feeling that the declines we saw from him, nothing to do with injury. The drop-offs we saw in his advanced numbers, the drop-offs we saw in his per-game traditional box score stats, I just thought, these are all coming back. Again, nothing to do with longevity, ability to stay healthy. I just thought his numbers are going to come back. And they haven't come back. They've gone absolutely bananas and through the roof. Last year, he still averaged 24 and 10, but saw his field goal percentage drop, saw his block rate drop, he saw his free throw percentage drop. This year, he's at a career high in blocks, in points, in rebounds. He's shooting over 50%. His free throws are at a career high rate. And he's only hitting 24% of his threes, so it can get better. He hit 32% last season. We all just hope that he stays healthy, because these numbers are ridiculous. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And to be honest, the Pelicans with Drew back, with Tyreek coming back in a couple of weeks, with Davis playing like an absolute madman at the moment, they're looking better. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to make the playoffs, but Dallas has got them covered for worst team in the NBA at this point. Philadelphia is doing better than Dallas as well. We're not talking about Dallas, but New Orleans he's picked it up after a horrid start and everything cracking at the moment. So Davis is obviously a huge part of that. Last night we had the monstrous line of the night and the waiver wire line of the night, both coming from New Orleans. So why not do it again? The waiver wire line of the night goes to Langston Galloway of the New Orleans Pelicans. Galloway was a surprise performer, I think it's fair to say. 23 points with 6 triples. He had 7 rebounds, 3 steals, and was 7 of 14 from the field. He also went 3 of 3 from the free throw line. He'd been sort of trending up a little bit, but then did start to drop off when Drew returned. But that's obviously a huge performance from Galloway. Can we trust that moving forward? I'll say no. But one thing we can look at is that Bud Hield is an afterthought, and Etuan Moore copped it in this one. He was only played 18 minutes, and that allowed Galloway to get his 31 minutes. Galloway is more your 16-team league guy, maybe 14-team, but not a 12-team league guy. But that's a huge performance, and I still, to this day, do not understand why the New York Knicks just didn't offer him a contract, or didn't even retain his restricted free agency rights. Just said, oh no, you can just go. Even though we've got a restricted tender on you, we'll just pull it back and you can just go somewhere else and sign a ridiculously cheap contract. But that's the Knicks for you. Galloway with a really, really nice game there. It's still only deep league stuff, though. It's not anything too exciting. For us, or that performance is, that would have been great if you had owned him in a 12-team league, but the reliability of it's not really there, in my opinion. everything going so well with the Pelicans. Again, I do recommend that you guys check out Locked On Pelicans with Jake Madison. He's going to be discussing the Tyreek Evans injury recovery news, which looks like he's going to be back in 2 weeks' time. He will be on a minutes restriction for a period of time, probably, well, they said 16 to 20 minutes for Tyreek. So we want to monitor that. Is that worth adding? It could be a Chandler Parsons type situation where you add him and for 2 months he's at 20 minutes and he's not really ownable. It really depends on who you'd be dropping and what you're considering or how your team's sort of going. I guess if your team's pretty strong up the top, maybe you can withstand having no stats for 2 weeks and then 20 minutes of production from Tyreek. But he will be back soon. Let's just hope we get a decent season out of Tyreek, because he can be a really big stat stuff and can be a really useful fantasy guy. The young gun of the night, Joel Embiid. Some very, very confusing information coming out of Philadelphia. Joel's not playing. His ankle's sore. Cool, so we're going to start Jahlil Okafor. Maybe Embiid plays, but regardless if he plays or not, we're still going to run with this starting lineup of Okafor. Next minute, by the way, Embiid's playing and he's starting, and he's going to go off and score 26 and 7, have 3 triples, 2 blocks, and 2 assists. This guy has got rookie of the year in the bag, I believe, unless he gets injured, which we all hope doesn't happen. But he is absolutely flying. The Sixers are actually flying themselves, having won 3 consecutive home games in a row. Well, that is what consecutive means, in a row. Not something I think you really ever anticipated. They'd want to win a road game, which they haven't done in, it feels like, forever. But some good stuff happening with Philadelphia. Embiid only played 20 minutes as well, and went 26 and 7 with a couple of blocks in that. Great percentages, and he is turning in a tremendous season. The restrictions on him, we're looking till at least Christmas, I think. But that doesn't mean that he's not valuable as it is. It just means that maybe his ceiling is top 60 at the moment, and then if they unleash the shackles, then we're talking about, and dare I say it, top 30, maybe. I don't think that's too big of a stretch, given what ridiculous numbers that he's putting up at the moment, and he's. He even had 2 assists in this game, which is not normally Joel's forte. But good stuff happening. He's captured the Young Gun of the Night award plenty of times already this season, and I'm waiting until I can hang a Joel Embiid jersey up behind me. It's on the way. It's been ordered. And so I don't have to use these surrogate Philadelphia ones like I'm using tonight, where I've got a Ben Simmons one hanging up there. Hurry back, Ben. The dud of the night. Greggy Munro. And Jason Kidd. Pre-game. We're only going to use 2 centers, but I'm not going to tell you who the other one is. We're starting John Henson, but I won't tell you who the other center is. Cool. Trickery. Good on you, Jace. So Jason's second center was 2 different guys. So there we go. So we have that. So Miles Plumlee played 15, and we got Greg Monroe in for a 2-minute cameo. He scored 2 points. He had 1 assist, and then he didn't see the court again. I don't know. I don't understand it. Monroe played well against the Warriors last season. Miles Plumlee is a train wreck. John Henson is a disaster defensively, and people will often correlate, he's a good shot blocker. He's a horrible defender. Monroe's a bad defender. Henson's a horrible defender. And he offers nothing offensively. So I do not understand it for many, many reasons. I don't think there's any point in holding on to Monroe. I see a lot of sentiments. I'm just going to stash him in case he gets traded. We've been hearing these trade rumors for 12 months, it feels like. You do that and it just continues to sink you and sink you and sink you. I know the allure of Monroe is huge, but I just don't believe that he's getting traded at any point. At least not until February, would be my guess, if he gets moved at all. I just don't see it happening. So I don't believe a stash of Monroe just in case he gets traded. You could be holding on for 3 months, and you could be getting this bullshit for 3 months, and that doesn't help you. It doesn't help anybody. So he is clearly. There's a couple other guys I'll mention who are on the cut list at the moment, and Monroe is definitely one of them. Not a good look, but I can't criticize Kidd too much. And I did get some pushback with people when I said that he's one of the worst coaches in the league. People do seem to think Jason Kidd is a good coach. I don't know why, but people do seem to think he's a good coach. I look at that roster, they're going all right. Yeah, all that stuff is true. He just makes some ridiculous lineup decisions. When I criticizing coaches, I'm more criticizing their handling of the media, their handling of their players, and their handling of the playing time and the set groups they put out there. Not their play calling necessarily, because I don't have as much knowledge as them in those areas. I just look at shit that doesn't make sense. And there's a big one we're going to get to later on. So Frank Vogel, get ready for it. because that's the stuff that I can look at and say doesn't make sense. Now, I don't know if a coach tells someone you've got to do this and then they don't do it. That's Terrence Jones' biggest issue, I think, and in the Josh Smith class of players. But the Bucks were competitive. I still don't think Kidd is a good coach, and this decision still is a little bit baffling to have him not see the court at all, basically. But it is what it is. Let's go through the games. There were 9 of them on Saturday. The first one, an early game, Utah at Houston. Rudy Gobert with a big performance, 12 and 14, 2 steals, 4 blocks. He'd been a little bit down, but that's a good night there. And Rod Hood bounced back after a sloppy performance in his last game, 25 points, including 5 triples, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. Very, very hot shooting. We had no Boris Diaw in this game after I went at length yesterday to say, Trey Lyles won't have much value because I'll continue to start Diaw despite him being terrible. Well, Diaw didn't play. Favors was out, so we had Lyles get a start. He played 33 minutes and he had 21 points. It was very Ryan Anderson-y, though, in that he did nothing in the other areas, no assists, no steals, no blocks, and he had just the 5 rebounds. And that can be a bit of a symptom of what Trey Lyles does. I'm not buying into Lyles as a must-own 12-team league guy. I don't know what Quinn Snyder will do when Boris Diaw comes back, which will be for the next game, but all indications are that he's going to play him 20 minutes and play Lyles 25, and Lyles has not thrived in that sort of a role at all this season. So, sure, you can add him, but I don't have a huge amount of faith in it. Gordie Hayward, he just can't shoot. He's basically at 30% over the last couple of games. The other parts of his game are fine. 39 minutes, 7 boards, 5 assists, 1 3. And if instead of going 4 of 13, he goes 7 of 13, we're talking about a 17, 7 and 5 line, and we're going, 3 thumbs up, Gordie. That's a good line. But unfortunately, the shot is just not falling. And I've got to think there's an issue with his finger because at least once a game, he bangs it either on a dunk on the rim, on a steal attempt, and he holds it like he's just wanting to go, this finger, like, it's not right. It hurts a lot. And I think it's affecting his shooting. It's a great buy low time if someone is just... And people do panic to percentages a lot. That's probably the biggest factor that people panic on is, this guy's killing my percentage for this week. Okay, that does happen. They also don't look at it the other way. This guy's ridiculously helping my percentages this week. But if someone has a bad shooting stretch, people get really pissed. He just killed my percentages when it's out of character. Now, Hayward's not a great shooter. He's not a 30% shooter, though. So now is a buy low opportunity on him, I believe. The George Hill questionable tag, very, very reminiscent of the Derek Favors questionable tag from last season. Continues to be questionable, continues to miss games. I think you still have to hold Georgie, but it is frustrating, no doubt. Dante Exum started, but neither he or Shelvin Mack are worth adding outside of, say, your 16-team leagues. On to the Rockets. Jim Harden, 31, 3 and 10, 2 blocks, 4 threes. Pretty standard night from Jim, to be honest. Eric Gordon played 37 minutes. He went 20.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 4 triples in that's almost a 3/4 James Harden performance. A big night from Gordon, and he's looked good. He's stepped it up a little bit over the last bit, and Pat Bev played 27 minutes. And I reckon that sort of rotational alignment that Harden, Gordon, Beverly, with Gordon and Harden getting most of the minutes, is the way they're going to run things in Houston. Beverly had 27 minutes, only scored 5 points, but if you own Patrick Beverly for points, think of another way to get him, because they're not coming. But he had 6 assists. That could also be a season high, because he's not a big assist guy. But what you want Beverly for is the fact that he got 3 steals, and he hit a 3, and that's what he's going to be able to do. And normally he's an above-average rebounder for that position as well. Trevor Ariza had some issues with his knee, wasn't his best game, 31 minutes, 6 and 4. But what about my boy Clint Capella? He's getting better every single game. 31 minutes here, and that's a celebration in itself that Dan Toni is waking up and going, shit, this guy is comfortably my best option. 20 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, that's out of the blue, 1 block on 10 of 19 shooting. He did miss both his free throws, so a little bit of a dent there, but he has no doubt improved that category almost out of the punt-only situation. I'm sure he's been snapped up already. Nene actually had a decent game as well. 16 points in 17 minutes with 6 rebounds, but he is surely just a deep league guy. Ryan Anderson, I'm always critical of the Luol Deng contract. I'm always critical of the Joakim Noah contract. Ryan Anderson's up there, $20 million a year for this crap. 5 points and 4 boards in 32 minutes, and I'm sure you'll all be... I hope you're sitting down, because he had 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks. I know, I know it's out of character for Ryan Anderson, but he did nothing. As per usual, when the shot doesn't fall, it's terrible. And I don't think I didn't own him anywhere. You have to keep holding him, but man, he's not good anymore. And I feel really sorry for him because he used to be a player I really liked. He's had a lot of issues go wrong. I think the back has really, really buggered him up, and I just don't see it ever coming back. Sam Decker watch is something I like to look at when I watch Houston games. 16 minutes for that's how lame I am. 16 minutes for Sam Decker, while Corey Brewer played 15 and KJ McDaniel's out of the rotation completely. D'Antoni's warming to Decker. He does like him. Deeper leagues, you want to pay attention. Brewer might seem himself phased out a little bit more, and Decker just forced in a little bit extra. So your 20 teamers and your dynasties, Sammy Decker is looming. Dallas and Orlando. How many people watched this game? If you did, I'm sorry. How many people saw the box score for this game and went, who's this? Who's Jonathan Gibson? Plenty. Probably people that didn't listen to this podcast, but John Gibson, 32 minutes, 26, 6 and 3, 2 steals and 5 triples on 16 shots, which led the team. Magnificent stuff. Huge numbers. And I did talk about him yesterday saying that, he scores. He averaged 42 a game in China. He's a 29-year-old rookie. This is what he does. He shoots and scores. The 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals is very nice as well. This is what he does. But is he a must-add player? I won't label him that at this point, but what I'll do is I'll go through this situation. The Mavs are without 3 guards: Darren Williams, JJ Barea, and Devin Harris. Barea's out for 6 weeks, so fine. Williams will be back this week most likely. Devin Harris, he's looking like he'll be back maybe end of the week as well. And when those 2 guys come back, where does Gibson fit in? Sure, he can take minutes away from their starting 3, which is still ridiculous at the moment. That's Dorian Finney-Smith. But when Dirk comes back, that's where the pencil goes. So, Gibson, that's awesome. As long as Dirk, Devin, Darren are out, Gibson's going to have value. I added him in a 30-team league. I believe I added him in a 14-team league. But in a 12-team league, I guess it depends on who I'm dropping. If I picked up Kelly Olynyk, his ass can go. And I'll take Gibson. We'll see how it pans out. But he played less minutes than Seth Curry, who had 13 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals. A decent night from Seth. And when Harris and Darren and Dirk all come back, they're all going to take minutes away from Gibson. He is going to lose it. Powell will lose some minutes. Finney-Smith will lose some minutes. And Nick Brasino will be out of the rotation completely. But we're not getting 32 minutes from John Gibson. Maybe even as early as next game if Williams is back for that and then Harris comes back at the end of the week. We're just not. And then Dirk moves the pencil down. So it's great, but where's the opportunity? Could he be ahead of Devin Harris? Sure. No problem with him being ahead of Devin Harris at all. Would he force Devin Harris to be a DMP CD most nights? That might be pushing it. I never understood why they cut Gibson in the first place, to be honest, to begin the season. Could he take all of Finney-Smith's minutes? They do play different positions. Finney-Smith's a bit bigger. He's more of a 3. Gibson's more of a 1-2 guy. All in all, grab him. But have your hopes set pretty low, just because it is a performance of opportunity. And when one guy comes back, he loses it. When 2 guys comes back, he loses it again. There are other guys to lose it. Finney-Smith, Powell, Brasino, maybe even Justin Anderson, but I doubt it. So just bear that in mind. We got 34 minutes out of Andy Bogut. He had 4 blocks and 8 boards, and he does have value in certain situations, but it's not for everybody. Wes Matthews had a decent game-ish. 13, 4 and 2 with 3 triples. Still can't hit shit, so yeah, I don't believe he's an ownable player. And the pencil, he couldn't hit anything. 3 of 13. His red-hot shooting was going to drop at some point. 11 and 6. At least he added 3 assists and 2 steals, which is not what he normally does. But you're still pretty happy with what you've gotten out of Harrison Barnes so far. Justin Anderson had a steal and a block and a 3, so that's a 1-1, and he had 9 points. So a decent Justin Anderson performance as well, where Finney-Smith, who I mentioned, he played 14 minutes. There's really no benefit to owning Finney-Smith in anything outside of a 30-man league, and he could lose some time. When Barnes moves back to the 3, I think that Gibson could take Finney-Smith's minutes completely out of the rotation. So I could see Gibson settling in at that 15 to 16 minute mark, even when some of these guys are back. On to the Orlando Magic. Now, Frank, this Jeff Green nonsense, it needs to stop. 22 minutes for Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
8 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. And you know what? That's his best game. The Orlando Magic, when Jeff Green is on the court, actually let's say when Jeff Green is off the court, they are 18.7 points per 100 possessions better with his ass on the bench. The man he replaced, Aaron Gordon, the Magic are 3.7 points better with Gordon on the court. So Gordon's a plus 3.7, Green is a negative 18.7. And you can't look at plus minuses and on-offs in isolation. But when the difference is over 20 points and everything else is telling you, you know what, Jeff Green's actually not good and is actively hurting the team, then you should probably look into that. Now, it's frustrating as hell for Aaron Gordon owners. He played 25 minutes only and he's struggling to get over that in this new bench role. 5 and 4 with a 3. I said I'd mention a couple of guys who are on the cut list. Gordon's one of them because, yeah, his ceiling is high. His ceiling is not top 50. His ceiling is probably top 75. And unless a guy's ceiling is really top 50 and there's a clear way for him to get there, it's hard to hold on. I own Gordon and I am still holding him personally, but I think that's because I'm generally more conservative at times. But it's not great for him at the moment, given the way that the Magic are using it. But again, the way I like to look at it is the guy that's replacing him is like, it's like someone took a shit on your kitchen table. You're just like, how did this get here? It stinks. You are disgusting. Get it out of here. I can't even look at this. That's what it looks like playing Jeff Green in the starting lineup. And that is an absolutely horrible analogy, but that's what it feels like. So it's not a positive. The Green is in there. And it's not like they moved Jonathan Gibson into the starting lineup and he went crazy and he went, shit, the Magic are clicking. They're not clicking. It's not working with Jeff Green. Interesting to see what ends up happening there. But Gordon is not a must-hold anymore. Big game from Bismack. 13 and 10 with 3 blocks in just the 23 minutes. Very unreliable to expect that from him, though. You're more a stream specialist and a 14-team league guy. And we had a good surge night as well. 15 and 9 with 3 blocks for Ibaka. Now, I'd mentioned this a lot of times that it's going to happen at some point that DJ Augustine's going to get hot and he's going to play big minutes. He played 30 here, had 18 points and 6 assists. This is just what DJ Augustine does, whatever team he is on. That meant Alfred Payton got benched, and Payton played 20 minutes. He went 4, 3, and 2, did have a steal and 2 blocks. And this is what Augustine does. He'll just as likely go back and play 19 to 20 minutes in the next game and not really be that useful. But this just happens. And that's why he's always a guy, when I talk about DFS, I'll go, you know what, Augustine can go off. And he's a low salary guy, and in a tournament, it could win you a thing. You never look at it in a cash game, but it is always a situation to monitor. He's more of a 14 to 16 team league guy in seasonal stuff. Evan Fournier, 11 and 7. His shot is not really working at the moment, but he will bounce back. I think he is a decent buy low guy, and a nice double-double for Nick Vucevic, who apparently can't shoot anymore either. 5 of 16 for 12 points and 12 boards. Good to see we're getting 12 minutes of Damian Rudej and no Mario Hezonja at all. Boston and Detroit, Al Horford back, Jay Crowder back, Marcus Smart didn't miss any time. So this is the first time the Celtics have played with their entire team all season. Horford came back, played 34 minutes, 18, 11 and 5, 2 steals, 2 threes, 3 blocks. Rejoice. Comfortably his best game for this team. It's probably setting a very, very high bar to what you can expect moving forward. That is an enormous performance, and he was great. That is, it is absolutely massive, and you love it if you're a Horford owner. Just don't expect it all the time. Isaiah Thomas went 24, 4 and 8. Avery Bradley, the rebounding did drop with Horford back. Now, Horford's not a prolific rebounder, so 11 rebounds for him is a bit fluky as well, but Bradley went down to 13, 4 and 3. So that string of double-digit rebounding games that he had, I don't think that you were ever relying upon that to be consistent. Jay Crowder came back. He struggled a bit. He had a 1-1, 9 and 4 in 27 minutes, but it goes with my thing. You know, coming back from a lower body injury is different from coming back from an upper body injury, and we see the difference. Horford from the head, Crowder from the ankle. Give him a little bit of time. Kelly Olynyk went back to the bench, something I did not enjoy. I wish he started next to Horford, and we're back to that Brad Stevens front court bullshit. 14 minutes for Olynyk, 5 points, kick him out of 12s, even 14s he can go if that's the way they're going to use him. And Amir Johnson started and he played 20 minutes. So it's just the same crap that we saw all of last season. So no rostering Johnson or Olynyk. Jonas Jerebko played well. He hit 3 threes in his 18 minutes, and I think Jerebko's a good player, but he's sort of stuck at this point in terms of getting a role. He's a deeper league sort of guy. Marcus Smart, 1 of 9. That's a horrific shooting night, but he played 31 minutes, and I think this is going to be his role moving forward. He did have 2 blocks, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, so the other stats are there. Just not a good shooting night from Smarty. Jaylen Brown, with everyone back, just the 8 minutes, and this will be more consistent. That will be what he does more moving forward, and same with Terry Rozier, who played the 14 minutes. Onto the Pistons. Marcus Morris requires a couple of things for value. Big minutes and high shooting percentages. The minutes have been down and the percentages have been weird. They were well up to start the season. Then he had a stretch of not shooting, and now he went 10 of 16, and that gave him 24 points, including 4 triples and 5 rebounds. But he's just not reliable. There's nothing else that comes in the other areas, and he's due to have some sort of regression in shooting. It bounced back here, but I don't believe he is a must-own player. Ish Smith, 12, 4, and 7 with a steal and a block. Now, I did see it mentioned somewhere today. I don't know where it was, talking about, what do you do with Reggie Jackson? When Jackson comes back, is he going to get his starting job back off Ish Smith? With Smith playing so well and Beno Udrih playing so well, does Jackson have any value? Yes, he does. Smith has filled in well, and Smith will get 20 a night moving forward when Jackson returns. But I don't believe he's keeping the job off Jackson. He will keep it for a little bit moving forward, as we tend to see with people coming back from lower body injuries. That will be the case. He will keep it for a little bit, but he won't keep it long term. But the presence of Smith limits Jackson's upside, which is something that I harped upon in pre-season, that Stan just doesn't like giving big minutes to his point guard. And now that he's got a point guard that isn't Steve Blake as a backup, he can afford to go 20 minutes for Ish and 29 to 31 for Reggie. Beno Udrih, another 4 assists, deep league, that's super valuable, but that will dry up, obviously. Toby Harris had 19, and we saw no Stanley Johnson, a DMP CD in this game, and Reggie Bullock played 20 minutes. 5 points for Bullock, 2 blocks. He's a very interesting deep league guy to me, Bullock. I'm not sure if that sort of role will stick, but I think he's an interesting guy to watch. A big Andre Drummond game, 20 and 17, but no other stats. Nothing else. No threes, of course. No assists, no steals, no blocks, but a big night in the rebound and point category. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had a stinker. 111 was good, but 4, 5, and 4 is not. And we had our first John Lua turd. 0 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. If you own him, just stick through it, I think. The Miami Heat and the Washington Wizards, we didn't have Justice Winslow back, so we got the same starting lineup. We had Hassan Whiteside going 18 and 18 with 3 blocks. He's just a beast at the moment. Goran Dragic, 22, 3 and 6, getting it going. Joshie Richardson, 15 and 7 with 4 triples, a steal and a block. Clearly a must-own player. He has to be owned everywhere. And Derek Williams started, had 12 points, but just doesn't get enough playing time. That's because James Johnson's playing ridiculously. And he is an ownable 12-team league guy, James Johnson. He had 2 blocks, he had 2 threes, he had 17 points on 8 shots. Now, that's not realistic. But you're not owning James Johnson for shooting or for scoring. You're owning him because he can give you a Richie Beno. He can give you 2 threes, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He's more likely to give you 1 3, 4 steals, 4 blocks as a breakout sort of game. But this is what he can do. His numbers are clearly inside the top 100 over the last couple of weeks. And yes, he loses something when Justice Winslow comes back, but not a huge amount. He's definitely ownable. Dion Waiters had 16, 4 and 8 in his 29 minutes. I think he loses a bit when Winslow comes back. He's more of a 14-team league guy. And Tyler Johnson dropped down to the 25 minutes in this one, 5, 3 and 4. I think his run as a 12-team league guy is likely over. But yeah, his minutes were fueled by the fact that he just could not hit anything. He was 1 of 9 for those 5 points. I always love seeing a guy with injury concerns like Brad Beal play 40 minutes. It's always brilliant maneuvering. 34 points for Beal is great. 40 minutes is not. 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 triples and a steal. A big night from Beal, but it just gets me very nervous. Johnny Wall also tipped in 34 with 5 triples and 8 assists. I think I know the 5 triples is very fluky. He was 5 of 6 from 3. No steals is a little bit annoying for him, but still, that's a huge night. Now, Markieff Morris lasted 9 minutes before succumbing to an ankle sprain, and the Wizards played a lot of Otto Porter at the 4. Now, only the 6 points for Otto, and his field goal percentage dropped off, but 7 boards, 4 steals, and 2 threes kept the value going. He is a guy that's going to get the steals, and he's going to hit some threes, but the percentage is definitely going to drop. So with Markieff going down and Porter moving up, we had to see someone extra on the wings. Of course, Marcus Thornton played 23 minutes. He scored 3 points. He's terrible. But my boy Tomas Satoransky played 25. 8 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. Played backup point and played at the 2. Kelly Oubre got 15 minutes. Trey Burke did not play at all. Satoransky is the future, backing up in the small man positions. He's more of a 16-team league guy at the moment, but he is the future of these backup swingman type situations. As for Markieff, I think you just hold him until we hear any more information. On to Charlotte and New Orleans. No Cody Zeller, and a bit of a surprise with a shoulder issue. He was a late scratch, so Roy Hibbert got the start, but he can't play big minutes. Just the 17 for Roy, 4 and 2, so we're not picking up Roy anywhere, even if Zeller misses time. It was Frank Kaminsky that stepped up. He played 36, Big Frank. 15, 5 and 2 with 3 triples and a steal. You know I've been on the Frank bandwagon all season, just saying there's just something there, just something sort of simmering. For now, I think he's more of a 14-team league guy. I don't imagine Zellers going to be out long term, but we'll probably hear some more information today to hear out what else we'll hear from Zeller. But it appears more precautionary than reactionary, which is always good. Kemba, 25, 7 and 5. Nick Batum, 13, 7 and 4 with 2 blocks. Big nights, even though both of them couldn't hit their shot. But what about Marco Bellinelli? What? 33 minutes for Bellinelli. 22, 10 and 5 with 7 triples. He stepped up with Zeller out as they moved that rotation around a little bit. Played a lot more Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at the 4. Look, he's been playing some extra minutes, but Jeremy Lamb is going to be back, and when Zeller comes back, he goes down to low 20. So it is very fluky performance from Bellinelli. Kidd-Gilchrist had a double-double, 10 and 13. It really killed your free throws, going 6 of 10, but added a steal, added 2 blocks, and those defensive stats, they've been real this year, so that's a real boost to his value. Marv Williams can't hit anything. He's on he was 3 of 14, had 13 points, and again, he's just not good. Last year was a real fluke in terms of being decent, but he's not a good player. He still, I think, should be owned, and I would own him at this point over Aaron Gordon. I would own him over Greg Monroe, but he moves down from maybe being your 9th best player to maybe being your 11th best player. So that starts putting him in the drop zone. I like drop zone. I might start using that. The Pelicans. Talked about Davis. Talked about Galloway. Drew Holiday. Second game back to back. Under 30 minutes. 22, 2 and 9 and 3 triples. You deserve to pleasure yourself if you drafted Drew Holiday, because it's going to work out pretty well. I drafted him in a Roto draft, the Red Rock Listener League Roto draft, I think in round 3, and then the next day he was announced he was going to be out, and I'm sitting on the bottom in that league, because when your 3rd round pick hasn't played at all, that's not ideal. But now I'm ready to storm home, guys, because I've got Tyreek coming back in 2 weeks as well, and now Big Drew's back, so he's out firing. But this is what I was talking about with Timmy Frazier the other day. We don't know how the Pelicans are going to use them. We've got more of an idea now, because Timmy played 36 minutes. He went 17, 5 and 8, and they played together a lot. So we're seeing a Frazier, Holiday, Galloway backcourt in today's game. Yesterday it was more Frazier, Holiday, more. But Frazier's getting these minutes. And this is why it wasn't a good idea to do a presumptive drop, because we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Alvin Gentry played 43 minutes of Dante Cunningham. He does nothing in minutes. He's almost does the least with the most leader. 6 and 8 in 43 minutes is putrid. Speaking of putrid, Terrence Jones played 20 minutes, 7 and 4 with a steal and a block, and this is classic Terrence Jones. Big game in one game, and then invisible and terrible, and loses his coach's trust. You still think you want to own him, but this is what he does. He's just not a very good player who gets distracted and is inconsistent. Also, not a good player, Buddy Hield. He's a rookie. Don't think he will ever be good. 6 minutes after 5 minutes yesterday for Bud, 2 points. Still owned in 43% of leagues. Unless 43% of leagues are keeper leagues, I'm not really sure what's going on there. He's been very, very poor. Eats one more, not a must-own 12-team league guy. I still do think he can have value. 2, 4, and 4 is not a great return in 18 minutes, but he still can be valuable, and it's just going to come down to what they do with Fraser and Galloway as to how they use more. But he's probably the 13th guy, so he's firmly in the drop zone. Drop zone TM. Phoenix and Philadelphia. Oh, geez, Phoenix, they're going well. No Tyson Chandler for his mother's funeral. TJ Warren in hospital with his illness. So we saw big PJ Tucker get a start. 7-7 in 31 minutes for Tucker. He has no appeal. He's leaving for the 16-teamers. Yesterday we had a massive performance from Alan Williams. Today we had a massive performance from Alan Williams. 12-11 from Big Sauce. 2 steals, 4 blocks. What do we make of this? I like him. I said plenty of times in Summer League how much I liked him, but I just didn't see how he was going to play. Will he play over Alex Len moving forward? I don't think he will, but it's interesting. I grab him in a 16-team league. I reckon that's probably the limit. Tyson will be back pretty soon, and that's going to limit what Williams can do. But interesting to see how Earl Watson uses him, because that's 2 absolute monsters that he's put up in a row. Eric Bledsoe bounced back 27, 5, and 6, and Devin Booker did play, but only managed 18 minutes, 10 points and 2 steals. And he's just not a good shooter yet. Definitely can become one, but he's struggled a fair bit. So was Marquise Chris, 6 points in his 20 minutes. Did hit a couple of nice-looking threes, but there is no reason to own him despite his starting status. And Jared Dudley dropped back to earth in 23 minutes, having 7 points. Brandon Knight, he is so infuriating to watch Brandon Knight. Only the 21 minutes here, 12-2. You still want to own him in 12-team leagues, but it's frustrating. And Tyler Ulis, this guy's going to be good. He's going to be a backup in the NBA for 10 years. He probably will never start on a good team. He might start on a bad team, but he's going to get you 20 minutes a night, and he's going to be that player who's in the top 130 to 180, that sort of range, multiple years. 22 minutes here, 9, 5, and 4, or the other way around, 9, 4, and 5 with 4 steals. Gets a lot of steals, doesn't turn the ball over much, gets assists, and gets his shot off. He's a professional already. I know he's a professional because he's getting paid, but he's comfortable already, and he's a very, very good deeper league player. And we'll see what the Suns do when Warren returns, whether they keep Ulis in the rotation, but I think they have to. He's playing that well. Dragon Bender got 12 minutes here, so that was good. We don't need, going back to Ulis, we don't need to see Leandro Barbosa play. We need to see Tyler Ulis play, and it was impressive. I liked it. Sauce Castillo. Nick Stauskas. Last year in the Red Rock Dynasty League, where we go 400 players deep, I traded for Stauskas. And I thought, you know what? I've got some faith in him. 3rd-year breakout coming. I'm on board. He had an expensive contract. And went, you know what? I'm making this trade. I'm taking him, despite him being yuck. Yep, grabbed him. Then I saw him in Summer League. I'm like, what did I do? Why did I just waste 12 of my $420 salary cap on this piece of garbage? Well, this is why. Because he's apparently good now. 26 minutes for Stauskas. 21 points on 9 shots. So that's obviously unrealistic. Hit 5 triples, had 2 rebounds, had a block, but this looks confident. He just looks like he knows what he's doing. When the ball's in his hands, he looks like he knows where he wants it to go. He's in command of stuff. Now, when Jared Bayless returns, when Simmons returns, it's going to be harder for him to stick in a big role, but I think that he keeps a role over a guy, say, like Hollis Thompson. I think he keeps minutes there over TJ McConnell, different positions, I know, but he is going to be this 20-minute guy, and that means in the 16-team leagues, maybe even 14-team leagues, Stauskas has value. He's shooting at like 55% this season, and last year he was at 39%, so I'd expect a pretty significant regression there, but I feel the minutes will stay relatively stable for Sauce, and he's looking good. I'd written off Sergio Rodriguez as a must-own guy. Then he comes back with an almost triple-double, 8, 8, and 11 with 2 steals and 2 threes. But he's very, very up and down, very, very fluky. So it is hard to continue to own him. Dario Saric had 10, 7, and 5 in his 25 minutes. The minutes just are the concern for me for 10-team leagues especially. 12-teamers, I can see it, but there's definitely not huge love for him from my side. And Bob Cove is struggling. Put him in the drop zone as well. He had a bruised side today, and that kept him out of the second half. Brett Brown was asked about his struggles. Are you thinking of benching him? Look, I admit I did think of benching him, but shooters shoot. The shot's going to come back, and I really like what he's doing defensively, and he knows what needs to be done. And that's sort of what I've been saying about Covington all season. But this slump is ridiculous. He's at about 25% from the field. He can't hit shit. Now, he still had 5 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He just went 1 of 5 from the field. Those other numbers are really, really good. And the defense had been a bit lacking the last couple, but he's that guy that can do it. He's in the drop zone, though. And the frustration's there. But also in saying that, if you drafted Robert Covington, you knew your field goal percentage was going to take a hit. He was going to be sub 40%. You didn't think he'd be 25, but you knew he'd be sub 40. The other thing I look at with Covington is he had potential to be a top 60 guy last year, but with Šarić, with Simmons, with Gerald Henderson playing, his upside was definitely limited this season. We had him projected, I believe, at about 90 or 100 coming into the year. Because of these other guys, it limited his upside. So if his upside is only that high, stream him out, move on from him. If I've dropped him in leagues, the defensive stuff's still good, but I don't believe his upside's that high, just because I think his minutes are going to have some sort of a cap on them. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies, Zachary LaVine bounced back, 22 points on 16 shots, 4 triples and 2 steals. What in the world is going on with Adrian Payne? This guy shouldn't be in the NBA. He shouldn't have been in the NBA. And now this is 3 strong games in a row. 15 minutes for Payne, even with Shabazz Muhammad back. 6 points, 2 steals and a block. So he's getting it done in the defensive categories. He's limiting what Nemanja Bjelica can do, who played just 14 minutes here. Cole Aldrich played just 6 minutes because Payne is making Thibodeau playing. I don't think it really impacts what we do much from a fantasy point of view outside of, say, 30-team leagues. But good on him, because he's been dreadful. He looks like he's 55 years old, but it looks like he's finally working out how to do some stuff. It's still a real adventure when he gets the ball, especially down low. The layups don't look great, but he's getting it done. Karl Towns, 28 minutes, foul trouble bothered him. That did allow Payne some extra playing time. 17 with 3 triples for Towns. Not much else, though, and Gorgie Dieng had a 9 and 11 performance in his 36 minutes. Wigo. Now, we didn't think that Wigo would continue to shoot at 11 billion%, but we also don't want him to go back and shoot 2 of 11, which is what he did here. 7, 4, and 1 with a block. That is bad, Wigo. He will bounce back, but there was always going to have to be some regression. Rick Rubio was 0 of 5, not a good night there. 4 boards and 7 assists. He's been a little bit quiet the last couple of games. Rubio, Chrissy Dunn didn't fare much better. In fact, Dunn and Rubio combined to shoot 0 of 9 from the field. Dunn had 0, 1, and 1 in his 18 minutes. We also got 37 seconds of John Lucas for whatever reason. The Timberwolves were brutal. They scored just 71 points. Dallas, Orlando, you've got a challenger. That won't continue. JaMychal Green for the Memphis Grizzlies, 19 and 8 in 28 minutes with a steal and a block. He'd been really bad, Green, and I'd cut him in all my 12-team leagues. This doesn't make me go, oh shit, maybe I made a mistake, because 10 games versus 1 gives me more of an idea of what to expect. But that was a good performance from him. Mick Conley, 13, 4, and 3, a steal, 2 blocks, still a little bit hobbled, but some big numbers there for him. Chandler Parsons was out of this one, so Jim Ennis got another start, 11 and 7 with 2 steals and a block. It's really tough to continue to own him. And what about Andrew Harrison? I thought Wade Baldwin was going to have this backup 1-2 job on lockdown. He's barely playing. Harrison stepped up amazingly. 13, 4, and 7. Comfortably his best game. He's not a guy to run out and grab. He's more of a 16 to 20 team league guy, but he's got a firm grasp on that backup point guard spot. Zebo had 18 and 7 in just 21 minutes. That's fine as a stream. It's more of a 14-team league guy. And Marcus Gasol had some bad shooting nights this year. 2 of 12 for 6 points, but it fills up the other areas. 7, 3, 1, and 2 in the other categories. And Tone Allen went back to starting. He had 4 points in his 20 minutes. This means the run of Vince Carter playing big minutes and producing big stuff is done. 26 for Vince, 4 and 5. The Warriors and the Bucks. There's not much to talk about, to be honest. The Warriors got the victory. Durant, 33, 6, and 5 with 5 triples. Clay, 29, 3, and 2 with 5 triples. Clay's shooting percentages, fine. Draymond, 10, 2, and 5, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Steph couldn't hit anything. Again, 1 of 11 from 3, but still had 25 and 5 with a steal and a 3. And Zaza grabbed double-digit boards. But nothing changes on the status of any of these guys. Do you add Zaza? No, you don't. You leave him to those deeper leagues. And Pat McCaw had 3 points in 17 minutes. Ian Clark didn't play, so that's something that's continuing in a pretty standard manner that McCaw is the guy getting the second most minutes off the bench behind Andre Iguodala, but nothing that's actionable for fantasy. On to the Bucks. Jabari, 28, 5 and 5 with 2 steals. Good Jabari. Giannis, not so good with his shooting, but 30 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals and a block. You won't complain about that. And Matty Dellavedova, 34 minutes for Daly, 10, 3 and 5 with a steal and a 3. I believe that Daly can be used in 12-team leagues because of that ability to get assists and steals, which he did here. Miles Plumlee, in his 15 minutes, 9 and 5. Good stuff. Not. Johnny Henson, 18 minutes, 7 and 6. I don't really see a reason to own John Henson in 12-team leagues. Mirza Teletovic, not enough minutes. Mick Beasley played 20 for whatever reason. Tone Snell is dreadful, 9 and 6 in 29 minutes for Snell. And these guys like Snell, Henson, and Teletovic, they're more 14 to 16 team league guys, and Beasley as well. The last game of the night, the Chicago Bulls and Los Angeles Clippers. The Bulls had a huge lead when I turned this game on, and I was like, what on earth is going on? Dwayne Wade, I believe, hit 4 threes in the second quarter alone, and then he started not hitting them. 28, 8 and 3 for Wade, 5 triples, a steal and 2 blocks, and they got beaten by themselves really in the end with some questionable coaching, and then Fred Hoiberg got himself tossed. Giggity. Rondo was back. He played 35 minutes, 9, 10 and 8 with 2 steals, a very, very Rondo-ish line. Still horrendous as an on-court player, just brutal, just really hurts the team. But when he's out there, the stats will start to come. So you're still owning him. And obviously, with him back, we wanted to see exactly how Fred would use him. And he used him at 35 minutes. So there's no question about him losing his job to Cannon or Grant or anything like that. Jim Butler, 22 and 6. And Robin Lopez, only the 6 shots. So we're back to normalcy there. 10 and 6 with a steal for Lopez. So clearly still needs to be used. We didn't see much Lopez at the end. They were running with Taj Gibson and Bobby Portis. And Bobby Portis is terrible. He's really, really bad at this point, and I'm losing confidence that he ever becomes good. I wouldn't even say buy low in a dynasty, to be honest. I just don't think he's ever going to be good. Isaiah Cannon hit a key late 3, but didn't mean anything in the end. And Jerian Grant got himself 2 more steals. He just gets steals when he plays. 15 minutes for Grant as that backup point guard. Interesting to see what they do with Grant and MCW when Carter Williams returns. Nick Mirotic is the other guy that's in the drop zone. 21 minutes for Mirotic, 2 and 1 with a steal and a block. I know his upside is monster, but he's just not playing enough. And you can move on from Mirotic. And I think I only own him in Dynasty where I'll keep him. But other than that, I would be happy to go. The Clippers, Blakey Griffin, 26, 13 and 5. Chrissy Paul, 19, 4 and 8 with 2 steals. And Mo Spates got red hot in the fourth quarter, ended with 16 points in just 19 minutes. But he's prone to do that. He's also prone to do nothing in other games, so that makes him very hard to own outside of even like 20-team leagues. JJ Redick, the shooting had to drop, and here it was, 10 points. Did help with 3 assists and 2 steals, but this is what I was talking about with Redick yesterday. And DeAndre Jordan, not a good game at all, 6 and 9 in 32 minutes for DeAndre. All right, that is it for the games from Saturday. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to look at the 6 games for Sunday for DFS. Alright guys, we're back. Let's look at the perfect DFS lineups from Saturday over on FanDuel. Timmy Frazier at 37 and John Gibson at 35.7. So good luck if you played those combo. At shooting guard, Brad Beal 45, Dwayne Wade at 42.6. Small forward, Marco Bellinelli 37.5 and Kevin Durant at 53.7. The power forwards, Tony Davis 64.2. Jabari Parker, 43.5, and at centre, Al Horford, 47.7, for a total of 406.9. On DraftKings, Langston Galloway, 39.25, Eric Gordon, 43.25. Durant at 56.5, Davis at 68.5, Al Horford at 51.25, and then rounding it out with Beal at 48.75, Jabari Parker at 45.25, and Marco Bellinelli at 45, for a total of 397.75 points. Let's look at these games now. In a DFS mindset, I guess, Well, first one of those is Atlanta in New York. This is an early game. It's a 12 p.m. start, so beware of that. It might not be a game that's included in your contest, but check it out. We've got Dwight Howard, who potentially could have got suspended for a flagrant foul in the other game. We haven't heard anything, so I'll assume that he's playing. Tabo Cephalosha is questionable with his knee sprain that's caused him to miss the last 2 games. Derrick Rose comes in as a point guard, obviously. He's at 5,900, and he's been putting up some decent-ish numbers. A pretty good matchup for him here as well. I think he's a solid mid-price point guard. And his opponent, Dennis Schroeder, is as well. He's got a tasty matchup going up against Rose. If I'm picking one of those two, it's going to be Rose. Just he's been producing at a slightly higher level recently, but you could go either way pretty comfortably, and both of them are in good spots. Brandon Jennings had 38 FanDuel points in the last game. He's at 4,200. That's great, but a few circumstances had to come together for that. He had to put together a huge night. I don't really put faith in it, but in a tournament, if Hornacek goes small again and uses Jennings in a bigger role, it could happen. Malcolm Delaney, he's hard to use in DFS. At shooting guard, Courtney Lee offers us nothing. Justin Holiday, he's had some big ones. He's at 3,700. He's sort of in that Brandon Jennings, which one do I use? I'd lean Jennings, but Holiday can be used. He's going to get these 24-minute rolls most nights, and maybe it clicks. If we have Cephalosha out, Timmy Hardaway at 3,600 becomes a tournament punt, and I don't like using Kyle Korver at 36. Even though it's 3,600, he just offers us really nothing on most nights. I love Carmelo Anthony. He's at 7,700. I think he's a nice, solid priced mid-priced small forward. That's how you say it. He's done well against Atlanta in the past. 40 points is not out of the question for Mallow. Bazemore at 4,900. He's been giving us value most nights. I think he's a decent guy to look at. I'm not putting a huge amount of faith in him, but he's okay to go for here. At power forward, we've got Paul Millsap. He's at 7,500. 2 big games in a row, even one of those with Dwight back. So 7,500 is a pretty good price for Millsap. So I think that he is in play. On the other side, he is at 7,200. He's been putting up monster numbers, obviously, as well. Both of these power forwards are in play. I would lean Kristaps over Paul, but both of them are... actually, there's a lot of value in this game if you're going to be including it in your contests. Mike Muscala had 20 in the last game, but his price is up to 4,300. So with Dwight back, it is very hard to consider using him. At center, Dwight, he's at 7,800, so not a bad price tag. I think 7,800 for Dwight's a nice price, and 40 points is not out of the question for him. He had 44 in his last time out, so he's worth looking at. Noah is not, and Kylo Quinn or Billy Hernan Gomez, we just don't know what Jeffy Hornacek's going to do on most nights to make those, or to allow those guys to really be relied upon for anything. Portland and Brooklyn is the next game we're going to take a look at. The Blazers are favoured by 4, and the total is 222.5 points. This is another game that's slightly early. We've got a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start for this one. At point guard, Dame Lillard, 9,200, really struggling to give us the right value. He's done very well against Brooklyn in the past. I cannot recommend using him in cash, but in a tournament, sure, the upside's there. He could drop 50 or 60, but at 9,200, I just think there's better options out on the board who are going to be more reliable and probably give you higher returns as well. The Nets point guard situation's yuck. Yogi Ferrell, Isaiah Whitehead, 3,600 for Ferrell. Maybe he played 19 minutes in the last one, but really I don't see any way of using either of those guys. At shooting guard, Alan Crabb's at 3,500. Maybe he has a big game against a team that signed him to an offer sheet. I don't know. It's a good matchup, but he does sweet FA most of the time. Minimum salary, though, in a tournament, maybe some shots go in and it works out, but there's no way you can rely upon him in any cash situation. 7,400 for CJ McCollum. He feels a little bit safer at that price. Been a little bit down on his production recently, not too far down, but it is a good matchup, so I don't think that CJ is a terrible play at that spot. Shawnee Kilpatrick has really dropped off, so at 5,000 it's just too expensive. For the small forwards, Mo Harkless at 46. Been a little bit down in his production as well, but 4,600 is not a high price. I like Harkless here. I think that's a good one to look at. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson at 4,000. Tournaments only, but he can give you, say, 30 points and really help structure your team. Same with Evan Turner. I think that Turner at 3,900 is one of the best pivot punt tournament options that's out there. That's a really cheap price, and he's been bad this season, but this could be the situation for him just to go out there and drop a 30. I think there's a chance for it. So he's my sneaky sleeper tournament guy in your fourth lineup, and see if it's just to make it a bit different. Bojan Bogdanovic is only ever a tournament guy. Can't trust him in cash at all. At power forward, Trevor Booker's numbers have started to drop, and it was going to be really hard for him to continue at the ridiculous level he was at. 5,200 is not a bad price. I'd be okay with thinking he can maybe get to that in this one. And I do love Eddie Davis at minimum salary, but in a tournament, just because look, he started the last game, but they've started 3 different people at power forward the last 3 games. But Eddie Davis grabbed 11 boards in his 23 minutes. He gets a couple of blocks, a couple of shots to fall, and he gives you 22 points. And it's fine. So I think that he's okay. Luis Scola out of the rotation for the Nets as well. At centre, Mason Plumlee, 5,300, one of the better centre bets on the board. He's been racking him up lately, averaging 29 over the last 5. I like using him. And Brookie Lopez always takes a little bit of balls to use him, just given what we saw earlier in the season, but the minutes have been fine, and the production's been there. His last 3 games, he's averaged just 29 minutes, but it's given you 38 points. And at 7,300, I think that he's almost a lock to get you 32, and you could easily get 35 out of Brook. It just does take a little bit of a leap of faith with him. The next game we'll take a look at, we're looking at the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. No spread released for this one because we don't know if Paul George is going to play. We've got CJ Miles has been ruled out already. Samaje Kristen is doubtful with a concussion, and Kevin Seraphin has a sore left ankle. They're not going to impact too much, but obviously George and no CJ Miles is huge. Let's look at the point guards. I love Russ here at 11,500. We know the Pacers defense has been abominable for most of the season. You can pretty much say you're going to get 60 out of Russ here, I would say, and that's if I'm spending up at point guard, it's there. It's not with Lillard, as I touched on earlier. And Jeffy Teague at 6,600, he's been giving us good numbers. If Paulie George is out, Teague at 6,600 becomes a very appealing option. Aaron Brooks, no. Shooting guards, Vic Oladipo, 5,700, really going well at the moment. He's had 2 good games in a row, but even if we look at his last 5, he's averaging 28 points, which is at 5,700, means he's got value. I think that you should be looking at 30 plus here for Oladipo. So an Oladipo Westbrook stack would be something that I think we've seen them go off together. It's not like it's one or the other. It's those two and nobody else. So they're fine to use together. In a game that if Paul George is not there, they could really turn it on. Monte Ellis at 5,500. I wouldn't want to touch him unless George was out, and even then, I'm not convinced. And Alex Abrines, probably not. At small forward, Andre Robertson had 24 in the last game. He's at 4,000. I don't think I want to use Andre Robertson at 4,000. As for Paul George at 8,600, look, if we know that he's going to play, I think it's a really good spot for him to use him at that price, but we just don't know at this point. And then if he is out, then Glenn Little Dog Robinson III, he is at minimum salary, but CJ Miles won't be there, and if Paul George isn't there, it's going to be 30 minutes of Glenn Robinson. That might only mean 20 points, but it's still 20 points at minimum salary, and that's fine. So we need to keep an eye out for Paul George news, and then that moves Glenn Robinson. It also maybe puts George Niang into consideration, but probably not. It's more going to be Robinson. Jeremy Grant is not worth it either. At power forward, Enes Kanter. I don't think this is an Enes Kanter matchup. 4,600 for him. I'll pass. Domantas Sabonis, his highest score in his last 5 was the last game, and it was 13 points, so he's not interesting to me. Thad Young at 52. He's just hovering around this 25-point mark, which is okay for cash. The matchup is good. I just don't think his tournament upside is there really at all. At center, Steve Adams at 5,000, struggling to get to value recently. Good matchup for him. I think this is a tournament option for Steve. And Miles Turner, if Paul George is out, I like Turner. If George does play, I'll probably fade him. The next one, we've got the Toronto Raptors. They're taking on the Sacramento Kings. The Raptors are favoured by 3, and the total is 210 points. Bebo Nogueira missed the last game for the birth of his child, so he should be back with the team and ready to go in that backup centre role. At point guard, Darren Collison at 5,800. Don't love it at 5,800, especially against the Raptors. Ty Lawson at 4,000. I think it's a good play. Now, we saw both Lawson and Collison play a lot together. We saw Dave Yeager say, look, we're just going to have to go small now. So that's going to mean a lot more Collison and Lawson. So at 4,000 for Lawson, who had 38 points in that last game, I think it's a worthy risk. Now, in most other games, he's been brutal this season. Regardless of minutes, he hasn't really given us value. But $4,000 is a pretty cheap price, and I think there's an opportunity for him to get at least 20 points in this one. But there is risk associated with it. 8,300 for Kyle Lowry. Tasty matchup. 40 points should be what you're looking at here. So I think he's fine. I would have him over, say, a Dame Lillard. Corey Joseph, Garrett Temple, the other point guards. No. DeMar DeRozan, 9,200. Pretty much just lock in 40 points for him. His last 5, his lowest score has been 42, and his highest has been 49. That's exactly what you want out of a high-priced shooting guard in a cash game situation. The other shooting guards in Sacramento, Aaron Aflalo and Ben McLemore. Yeah. The small forwards, Matty Barnes at 4,100. If we believe Dave Yeager is going small and is going to continue to use Barnes in a big role, then 4,100 is great. The problem is that sometimes that Barnes will play 4 minutes, then Omri Caspi comes out of nowhere. So that's a risk, but Barnes at 4,100 can comfortably beat that value. Rudy Gay is at 7,000. The salary's dropped. His production has also dropped recently. I think that him playing a little bit more at the 4 or interchanging with Barnes might work in his favour, but the matchup is not ideal. Terrence Ross at 3,800, he's been giving us some decent numbers. So I think Terrence Ross at 3,800 is someone in a tournament that if you're looking for a cheap wing, he can be that guy, and I don't think I'll be using Damari Carroll. Patrick Patterson, 3,800, no thanks. Pascal Siakam at 3,700, also no thanks, although he did pretty well last time out against the Kings, but that was a game with no Jonas Valanciunas. For the centers, speaking of Jonas Valanciunas, 5,700. He played 37 minutes in the last game. Boogie does get centers into foul trouble, but 5,700 is not a big amount for Jonas, so I think that he can return value in certain situations. Love Boogie at 10,200. He does well against Toronto. 50 points should be. It should comfortably be in reach for the Boog. Also look for Costa Koufos not to start this game. There's a real chance of that, I'd say. The next game is the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. No spread. We don't know the status of Will Barton. We don't know the status of George Hill. We don't know the status of Boris Diaw, who's likely to play, but he did miss that last game today. Georgie Hill at 6,300. I won't be using him until we know that he's ready to go. Obviously, Emmanuel Mudiay at 6,000. Huge game in the last one, but this is not a good matchup. Slower pace, good defense. I don't like using Mudiay here. And Jameer Nelson, who's been getting the extra run with Barton and Harris out, he's not turning it into production. He's averaging 34 minutes across the last 3 and 16 points. That's terrible. At 3,700, it's almost right on value, but it's terrible production. 3,700, 34 minutes, if it happens in a tournament, maybe, but it's just nothing going through him really at all. Jamal Murray, not really worth it unless we knew he was getting a bigger role. And if Georgie Hill is out, Dante Exum will start, but that doesn't mean that we need to use him in DFS. Rod Hood at 5,200, I like. He's been really solid. It's a great matchup against Denver's wings. He should be able to comfortably get over 25 points. And Will Barton at 53. Normally, lower body injuries I'm not keen on, guys, but I think they'll have to run him big minutes and give him shots with the absences on their wing there. So at 5,300, if we hear he's playing, he would come into consideration for me, but definitely not a lock. The Rooster, Danilo Gallinari, is at 6,000. Hate the matchup, so no thanks. Gordy Hayward at 7,300. Struggling. A lot of it's to do with his shot. In a tournament, I can understand using it in a really, really good matchup for him, but very hard in cash, especially considering I think the finger is really bothering him and that's affecting him. Wilson Chandler at 6,000 is on fire. Terrible matchup for Wills, but I don't mind. I don't mind the play here of using him. Power forwards. Nick Jokic at 4,400. Put up 27.5 in the last game, so that was great. Can he do it again here? I have my doubts against a team that has Rudy Gobert as their center, and defense is an issue, but he's done well against Denver in the past. The last couple of games he's played against them, he's averaging 29 points in 29 minutes, but we just don't know how they're going to use him. So it is really hard to use him in anything outside of a tournament. Trey Lyles at 4,000, definitely worth a look at that price. Especially if we know that Diaw's out, but Diaw will likely be back. But Lyles is worth a look at 4,000, but only for tournaments, I believe. Ken Fareed at 6,300. It just feels too high, that price. I know he's had some big games, but did only have 29 and only played 24 minutes in the last one. And 6,300, I don't have the trust in Fareed to use him at that price. As for Gobert at 6,500, still just feels a little bit too expensive, and we won't be using Yusuf Nurkic. The last game of the night features the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers. We obviously want to check to see what's happening with D'Angelo Russell, who surprisingly, I guess, sat out the game on Friday. That's really the big injury concern here. Rajon Rondo at 5,500. He's not a bad guy to look at. He is a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy to look at in terms of his DFS value. He's okay. Russell at 6,200. Tasty matchup against the Bulls, no doubt. And he's actually averaging 35 across the last three. But I'd just be a little bit cautious with someone with a sore knee. Shooting guard Lou Williams at 4,900 gets a boost if Russell is out. So I think he's a guy to look at. Dwayne Wade, huge game today, but back-to-back in LA, it generally doesn't go well for teams. So I'm off Wade at 6,400. Jordy Clarkson, 5,100. Love it if Russell's out. Love it a lot if Russell's out, to be honest. And Uncle P had 30 in Russell's absence. So he at 4,100, he would definitely come into consideration as well. Small forwards, Brandon Ingram at minimum salary. The minutes are there, the production's just not. But at some point it's going to come. We've seen non-productive small forwards go big against the Bulls in the past. So you could do worse than using Ingram in a tournament, I believe. Jim Butler at 8,500. He's fine. Good matchup for him. I think he's a really solid guy to use. Luol Deng, not so much. Power forwards, Larry Nance is not interesting. Taj Gibson, not for me. Nick Mirotic, tournament, but even then, I don't even think you'd look at him in a tournament given the way things are going. And 6,700 for Julius Randle. We saw what Blake Griffin could do against the Bulls today. Randle's in a similar situation. 34 to 35 points should be an aim for him, and I think that he is worth using. More for cash. I don't think his tournament upside is all that high, though. Rob Lopez at 4,700. That just continues to be value, so I'd use that. But the other centers like Tariq Black and Tim Mozgov, they aren't really going to do much to float your proverbial DFS boat. Let's look at the picks of the day now, starting off with FanDuel. Ty Lawson at 4,000, Derrick Rose at 59, and Russ Westbrook 11,500. Shooting guards Lou Williams 49, Vic Oladipo 57, and DeMar DeRozan 92. The small forwards Matty Barnes 41, Carmelo 77, and Jim Butler 85. Power forwards Eddie Davis 35, Kristaps Porzingis 72. At center, Rob Lopez 47, Mason Plumlee 53, and Boogie at 10,200. On DraftKings, Lawson's at 38, Rose at 56, and Westbrook at 12. Justin Holiday at 33 in a tournament is a puntable option. CJ McCollum at 73 and DeMar DeRozan at 86. For the small forward, another punt, Evan Turner 39. The Rooster at 5,800 and Jim Butler at 87. For the power forwards, Trey Lyles 48. Kristaps Porzingis 72. And the centers, Eddie Davis 3,000. Mason Plumlee 54. And DeMarcus Cousins 10,400. On to my Aussie countryman, fellow countryman, on Moneyball. Georgie Hill's at 4,300. I mentioned that yesterday with Al Horford. He was at minimum salary, and if he plays, you've got to play him. Same with George Hill. If he plays at 4,300, lock him in, no doubt. Darren Collison's at 51, and Ross is at 12,100. Same with the shooting guards. Will Barton is minimum salary 3,500. If he plays, easy. Vic Oladipo at 59 and DeRozan at 9. Small forwards, Matty Barnes is 38, Wilson Chandler is 52, and Butler is 87. For the power forwards, Davis 35, Porzingis at 71, and the centers, Valanciunas at 5,000, Plumlee at 54, and Boogie at 9,600. Over on Draft Stars, Isaiah Cannon at 5,000 is a real tournament play. That's minimum salary on Draft Stars. Probably wouldn't recommend it, but it is someone you can throw in at minimum salary. Oladipo 11,550, and Russ at 23,550. For the shooting guards, Terrence Ross 63, Wilson Chandler 9,050, and DeRozan at 17,750. For small forwards, Glenn Robinson III at 5,000, Barnesy at 7,650, and Jim Butler at 18,450. Power forwards, Sabonis at 53, Ken Fareed is a cheap 8,950 on Draft Stars, and the centers, Rob Lopez 10,550, and DeMarcus Cousins $19,300. That is it for today's podcast, guys. If you like the show, leave a review and subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, follow the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network as well. And of course, Basketball Monster. You know what we've got: DFS projections, seasonal projections, tools, forums, comments, anything you want to do. You can even throw your own custom projections in over on Basketball Monster. We are done, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Steve Kerr.